Hello and welcome to the Christian Mindset, where we intend to live out Romans 12:2 in our daily lives and be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Today in the studio, we have a very, very special guest for Testimony Tuesdays. This is my beautiful and loving wife, Toni Matthews. Welcome.
Thank you, and good morning or good day to all of you.
Awesome. Well, this is Testimony Tuesdays. So the questions you're going to be answering are: what was your life before Christ? Your salvation experience? What is your life like after Christ? Where God has you going in the future? And your daily spiritual practices that keep you close to God and on the right track.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Let's jump right in. Begin.
Sure. Testimony Tuesday. Excited to be here and to share with you a little bit more about myself. I was baptized actually when I was 20 years old, and did not come to the born again experience until almost 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, which is really, really interesting. I think, that's why I think it's important for us to share that. I thought that I was a Christian all my life. And I was born and raised in Sofia, Bulgaria. Growing up was really interesting. There were two sides of the truck. Feels like the whole time. One side was for the privilege, and the other side was those were not born from a communist family. They were not part of the Communist Party, because at that time wealthy wasn't really it was considered wealthy if you were part of the Communist Party.
You got a little bit more privileges and
a little bit
whatnot.
more. You mean yes?
A lot of bit more.
A lot of bit more.
Okay.
And yeah, so that was growing up was really just having those two sides, right? And there's always you're being belittled, and you're being looked down upon or being compared to. So just really not a pleasant place, right?
Yeah.
And this is really it was challenging, of course, for for me in Bulgaria, because our parents were not communist. So we had God, and we were believers. My family was, and I had an amazing parents. I mean, not just my parents, but my aunt. We were very close knit family, and I learned a lot about God through my family. We were not allowed to read the Bible and so forth, but looking back, I thought that I was always a Christian. There was a time in my life when I was upset with God. I was upset with Jesus, and but for the most part, I remember knowing that the couple of things that I remember very distinctly. It was sacrifice, learning about sacrifice from a very early age. I was adopted when I was a baby. I was 40 days old. I did not know that until I was 20 years old. And it was after my mom passed away. And before my dad passed away, he actually told me. My mom and my dad, both of them, they had heart disease. They were 45, 46 when I was born. And of course I had no clue until I went to school, and of course I did not know at all, but when I went to school I I was being teased a lot because those, they were constantly, kids were making fun of me that those were not my parents but my grandparents. So I remember really learning about sacrifice, and my father will go and help all the single ladies on our street. And when I say single, I mean more the older ladies. Yes, he was. Well,
your father was a bit of a player, huh?
There was a moment where my mom was saying, you may want to help the single ladies. Maybe you have some other ulterior motives. But there was just really one lady who was young, and she was, her husband left her. Everybody else, they were all older women, and okay. I knew exactly where he was because, like I said, we were quite poor, according to the world, not according to us. I had no idea, because I grew up with. My father wouldn't put me to bed without telling me that I was the meaning and the content of his life.
Wow.
I was extremely, I don't know, I think, I was loved.
Yeah.
I remember my growing up was a very, very happy place. I was the center of attention, and my father spent so much time with me, my mom too. They would drag me everywhere. I was always with them. I don't remember ever being dropped off. And I didn't have any grandparents. They were all long gone before I was even born. So learning about sacrifice, learning about living a sacrificial life, learning about giving and living a life in service. My aunt was known for baking, and there wasn't a baby that was born or a new house that she was not making cookies and pastries. She was famous, and also learning about how important family is, right? And all of that because of Jesus. So my father will tell me a lot of stories about him being a shepherd, and he was comparing himself with Jesus in a way of just living a sacrificial life and looking for the right role model. So I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot going to all the cemeteries and really living the Eastern Orthodox religion. It's different than probably something that but I was even named after a saint. So we celebrate our name days because we were named after saints. Yeah. And Saint Anthony is my saint. So which is it's January 19th every single year. So it's like
she's saying that to remind me, by the way. So, you may not know, but I got the hidden meeting there.
Yes, because it's actually, there isn't an expectation of a present and stuff, but on our name days, there's a lot of traditions. Bulgaria is a very old country, and there were a lot of traditions, and of course, my family was, kind of, old family. The tradition was really if you have a name day, you're always expecting someone to come, and people know that it's your name day. They know you. Yeah. I mean, the communities were, still kind of, close knit as well. We knew all of our neighbors, and so they will come and visit you on your name day, and you better have something to put on the table, right? Kind of. So, but yeah, I grew up with a lot of love. And a lot of family and a lot of service work. A lot of, everything that we've done was in service for something. Yeah. When my mom had, she had a heart attack, and she had to, work from home versus going to work. Her sister, my aunt, will come every day after work, and help her do her work. And when I say work, she was still working for the company they worked before. My mom lost her dad when she was, I think she was 12 years old, and then she started working when she was 14. And that was my grandfather, who was killed by the communist.
Wow.
And so it's knowing that learning how important was to have a role model, and Jesus was that role model. Learning about sacrifice and learning about truth. I remember my dad telling me stories about what to watch out for. And the number one thing, the most important thing that he wanted me to know was to know how to recognize the truth. He used to tell me, and I think it's a saying by Churchill, that the truth is the most important thing in a world, and it's usually guarded by an army of lies.
That's the truth. That's a true statement. Yeah.
Yes. And so I always wanted to know the truth, just like anybody else, right? I mean, growing up in that time, it was like it's a drift. I mean, it's you can't talk about politics, you can't talk about sex, you can't talk about real relationships. You just pretend that everything's okay. You smile, and and this is what I found to be the standard after leaving home, really, because that was not the case when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And
inside of your home,
inside of our home and our family, we were very, very family oriented.
But outside, it was like you have to put on this facade.
You have to put on this facade, and I didn't know that because I wasn't raised like that. And it was real hard awakening for me that I didn't know what to do with that, right? I wanted to raise my hand and speak and talk, and it
was a no-no.
It was a no-no. It was like, shush, don't speak. Who do you think you are? You're not worthy. Your parents are not even your parents. Those are your grandparents. It was just like constant put down. Teachers were beating kids. I was abused in kindergarten by my teacher, who was making me massage her for hours and hours, and I will come home and I will be crying because my hands hurt.
Wow.
I mean, it was just I know there are a lot of those there are a lot of that going around, but
so your home life was very loving, right?
Very loving.
You never lacked for love in your home. You were taken care of.
Yes.
Daddy told you he was the apple of your eye, the apple of his eye, every night before you went to bed.
Every night.
You had at least a foundation of who God is and who Jesus was, right?
Absolutely.
So when you left the home, like when you would go out to school or whatever, like what was different? Where did things take a turn? Where you really started experiencing the world,
right?
And what it could be.
Exactly. I mean, and so just to back up a little bit, growing up in a communist Bulgaria was only like, it was like 23 years between being freed from the Ottoman Empire and coming down again under the communists. So it seems like Christianity was the one thing that everybody was going after and wanting to to conquer us for that, because 500 years the Ottoman Empire ruled over us, and then the communists, that was the first thing. That's really what was to separate us from God. So those are the stuff that I remember growing up, and remembering that we live for higher purpose. We have to stand up and be leaders. This was part of our literature. The Bulgaria was really in the last last 100 years, I guess, before it was freed from the Ottoman Empire. It was really literature that guided and helped with that process. So that was really the role model, and I was embodying it. I was so determined to be that, what my father and what I've seen. And so when I when I had to go to school and live this life, it was a constant struggle. I will come home and I will be asking questions of like, are you my father? Are you my mom? The kids are telling me that you are my grandparents.
Boy.
And my father and my mama, they will be like, what are you talking about? They wouldn't tell me the truth. Because I guess he was, and later, like I said, he told me that was not their choice. It was how the communists were choosing to regulate adoption.
Wow. Oh, wow. So the communists were saying
Yes.
that they weren't allowed to adopt.
No, they can adopt, but they cannot tell the truth. Everything was done in a way that, they changed my birth certificate, and so nobody will know that I was adopted.
Wow, that's so weird.
Yes. So it wasn't, it was, they had rules, and my parents had to follow that.
Oh. Okay.
And so, yeah, even in first grade, and I went to school a little early, but just remember always having to fight. And that was the one thing, my father kept telling me, what is the truth? And make sure that you know how to recognize, and then keep on fighting with the lies. And of course, rejection, like I said, the whole drift about, rejection, you're not good enough. You're not a communist, you don't have a car. My parents didn't have a car. And of course, I was a talented dancer. I was dancing for a long time. For I think ever since I was 3 years old, my father would take me, my mom and my dad, and I didn't get accepted to the ballet school, and the reason was because our political orientation was not the communists. We were not against them, but we were not with them. So and so all of that, I had to go to a different school, and it was like my whole life was crashing down. Everything was just crashing down. My vision, my dream, all of the things that I, all of the, the happy years were just really crashed by. It really started when I started school, and it wasn't as. I was managing it, although I was constantly coming home, beat up because I was tiny, but I was,
Very
I found
outspoken.
Yeah, I quickly found that intellectual, arrogancy was definitely a huge, it was a tool, and I was using it. That was the only thing that I could do. I was extremely outspoken. I will go to the principal and said that our teacher was beating the boys, and then he will be coming home to report that to my dad, and my dad would be like, well, yeah, she did good. So, we were rebellious, we were different, and I kind of knew that already, and but it was just challenging to be outside, right? To kind of to live that life. And so rejection, the whole facade, not being able to speak or to say anything or to ask a meaningful question was it was difficult. It was very, very difficult. So I don't think many people, I don't think everybody fits in that, right? I believe when I got baptized, that things may change for me, that my luck may kind of turn all of a sudden, because I was baptized when I was 20, and it was just like not even 6 months after the first election, the first election since, I don't even know, like 70 years for Bulgaria.
Yeah.
And the communists were, they fell, the wall fell, and so we had the first election, and then boom, I said I want to be baptized. I thought that will kind of open up, and things for me, but it really wasn't much of a difference, to be honest with you.
You basically just got wet, and
that's it. I think so. I was rebellious. I was extremely rebellious because of the world around me. It wasn't but because of anything of home and how I was raised. It was just the world and crushing on my dreams. So I was a teenage mom. I got pregnant, but learning that.
How old were you?
I was 14. And I said that I am not going to leave the baby. I want to keep the baby. And it was extremely... It's even hard for me to believe that I was... probably if I was not raised by my parents, that wasn't going to be the story, because left and right, teenage moms were forced to have an abortion
by the Communist Party,
or by their family, because it was a shame. They were shamed. I did not know that at that time. Like I said, I was still. It was really, I was rebellious because of did not get accepted to the ballet school, and I was just really upset with the world. So I was just like, I don't know. I met, my. I had to get married. My parents said, if you want to keep the baby, you need to get married. So I had to get married.
Wow, at 14.
Yes, but we were kids, but we were both really we were struggling with the same things. He was being shamed for his parents being divorced. So he was the black sheep of that new school that I went to, and because he was the black sheep, I was the one going to be his friend. That's who I was. I was always friends with the black sheep and all the ones that are being rejected. Those were my peeps. And so we just had things in common, and like I said, sex was taboo, all of those things, and we had to grow up really fast, with the things going on. But I lost my mom a little bit after that, and then I found out that I was adopted. Not to mention, being a teenage mom, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and I think that's what my mom was trying to protect me. But I was so determined to have the baby. I said, no, I can't have this and I can't have that, and my dreams are crushing. I'm going to have the baby. I'm taking responsibility. And I remember saying, I will be the best mom. I will be the best mom that I could ever be, that anybody have seen. That was really, thinking about, humanity. It's like, if we have a why, then we know how. We don't really care how, because we have a why. We don't care what, how. And that's how I was able to do that. To go to, all of a sudden, I had to go to an evening school with all the growing ups who were going to they all were from broken families or from non-communist, whatever the situation was. But I had to grow up real fast after that, and we've had a lot of issues with the police, because my mother-in-law, she left the country before the communists fell, a little bit before that, and she was in a refugee camp for 4 years in Italy. So we had a lot of trouble because of that. The moment she crossed, I don't know exactly what the process was there, but it was really interesting that they knew immediately, and it helped us a little bit that Izzy's dad was in an army, his divorced father. But life was really tough, and just living a lie, not being able to even get any wisdom from anyone, to understand, how do we navigate? What do we do? And not having a Bible to learn, but just really, listening to stories. I remember, I had a book to about all the prayers. That's something that my mom had, and my aunt, that I will be going through the prayers and just praying to God. But it's so interesting how because of the prosecution, like I was prosecuted ever since I can remember. I had this arrogance about me.
Wow.
You know,
Like
because
the world owed you something, or
I mean, it's like you know, I don't need you. You know, you get isolated. You get isolated. You are, you know, that the rejection, you know, isolates you. So you have to kind of like, you know, a choice. It's like, do I choose to, you know, to shrink, or how do you know, what do you do? So I think, you know, the shrinking came with the arrogance also, and the thought about, you know, I can't trust anybody. Nobody wants to speak the truth. You know, I'm a victim. Everybody's coming, you know, is against me. Nobody's recognizing any of the things that I'm doing, and then from that, you know, it's like, why am I doing this? Why? And so in a nutshell, you know, tough life growing up, but a lot of love, and knowing who God is at the front, from, you know, was the first thing for me. And then seeing the, you know, the drift, the world without God, the world that had nothing godly in it.
Yeah.
Wanting to do the best I can to preserve that love into my own family, which was not easy. But I was very, very determined. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so you're a teenage mom. You and Izzy are trying to make it work however you can.
Both going to school, yeah.
Both going to school. How long is it till you come to America? And what was it like coming here? You know, I think you came over first with Crystal, right?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
And you were here alone for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, 10 years later. So Crystal was born in 1985, and I came here in 1995. I had to come alone with Crystal because they would not let our family leave. And that was challenging, but it was the only way. Like, I had no reasons to be there.
Yeah.
And we didn't want it to be there. I remember, you know, at this point we were not told not to, you know, and we've always believed in God. We were just not talking about it. You know, this is none of those things you can share or talk outside of your home. But just I really wanted to leave. I couldn't take it anymore. So after my father died, I said, this is it. You know, if I get a chance, we are leaving. And it was really easy. I was still kind of, you know, I'm like, how are we gonna do this? But like I said, when you have a why, it's easy to our questions were always like, how do we do this? How do we look into it? How do we tackle this from another angle? Like, what can we do? And it was tough to be here alone. Crystal was young. He wasn't, you know, learning again that there's a drift everywhere. It wasn't just a drift in Bulgaria. There's a drift here too. Speaking with an accent, not knowing words, dressing differently. I didn't have any money. I believe I have only $500 that we borrow. So I can't come. And but it was better. It was better in a lot of ways. And for the first time I actually saw what a church community really is. Going to the Eastern Orthodox Church, I wanted to go every weekend. You know, God had put in a seed into my heart, and I wanted that. I wanted to preserve that so much, my family. And I started going and struggling because I wasn't learning anything.
You say the Greek Orthodox Church, it was more ritual than anything, right?
Yes, and it was in Greek, and it was Greek and English, but none of it was easy for me at that time while I was still learning English, and not having anyone to talk with about God. It was really, I had, I would talk to my friends, my close friends, but they never read the Bible also. We kind of, grew up in the same way. Like my friends and me we were actually neighbors. We didn't know each other, but we lived very close. And then growing up at the same soup, right? The same stuff. So really not much of a mentorship.
Yeah.
There was a guy who was friends with my mother-in-law, and he was a priest in Bulgaria, and he was also a political refugee here. And when I was very excited when I met him, because I was very I wanted to learn so much. I was very, very curious about everything, everything, and I wanted to ask him so many questions, because I remember having a lot of questions about how can I go to this school? I always wanted to go to the difficult schools, and they're like, no way, you cannot go to the seminary. They don't accept women first. Women were not accepted, and also I don't even know how it was. It was a taboo, and that's why a lot of them end up as refugees.
Yeah.
And but I remember when I met him, I wanted to talk about God, and he will talk about God, but he was very cynical about everything, and I was just so upset. I remember being so upset. He was drinking. He was a drunk. He was a drug addict. I don't know what happened and how the fall. So I remember witnessing that and thinking, I'm like, how can this be? How can this be? And not understanding, but looking for an answer. And remember hearing, hearing in church, I am the truth. I am the way, I'm the truth and the light. And everything that I was, I was picking up, bits and pieces from, because service wasn't really a service, they would just sing and all that. But, from conversations and, started reading the Bible a little bit, I know that there's more into what I needed to learn, and I know that I wanted the truth, because everywhere that I looked, I see lies and deceit, lies and deceit, and nobody was willing to to talk about it, really, because even here.
Now, how did that affect you, like looking inside of yourself at that time? I was extremely
lonely. I mean, that feeling of being oppressed, not only that, but abandoned. And it's like, what's the point of all this? Like, I had my why. I wanted to be the best mom for my son, and that was my only why. And I wanted to do this thing for my family. But outside of that, I did not know what was the purpose of all this. And that was like not having an aim, almost. What was, we're in. So I guess those are my dark ages, before I come to really know who Christ and Jesus is, which is so.
And how long was that period? Like
a long time.
It was a long time.
It was a very long time. And
how did those feelings make you act out? Like as far as sin in your life? And
I didn't want to accept that there was sin in my life, because I was constantly prosecuted. Yeah. And I was always working 2 jobs. I remember that I wanted to speak the truth and hated lying. I hated lying. But then I started lying about how old I was when I had my son, because I was being looked down upon.
Being shamed,
Yeah, I was being shamed. And so my life was kind of turning into a lie, and I hated myself.
You started feeling guilty.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm feeling guilty. I am feeling, depressed. That there's really not. It's like no matter what, I was not fulfilled. When when Izzy came, when he finally came here, we had a big Christmas. And I don't even know. I think I found him a job, so he started working at the pier, and it was a really tough job. But regardless, we were no longer being prosecuted in terms of like, if you wanted to work, you can find job. It wasn't about you can't do this, you can't do that, no matter how much you wanted, because at least here we can do it. It wasn't what we wanted, but it was something. And we had a huge Christmas that we had so many presents. Christo I think he had quite a few. And he had a hard time without his father, before his father coming. We had a real hard time.
Yeah.
He was being bullied at school. I was being bullied by my mother-in-law, who was very, very cynical. She was nowhere near knowing God, unfortunately. And I think I was convincing her of her sin every single day, because I didn't want to. I was taught not to talk about people, and if I had nothing nice to say, I would not say stuff. And I always see it like I was really I have a different heart. I was genuine. I wanted to help people. I don't know if it was because I know that she also had some struggles too, but we were approaching the life from two different angles, and so we really were not getting along. It was terrible. She will talk about people, and I will say, well, I don't want to listen, so I would just go outside and sit outside and wait until she stops talking. It could be hours. So it was really tough, but finally he came, and we had a big Christmas. And I remember, and I know Krista remembers that, thinking that we really did not. He's like, I don't really care about presents. He's like, I like the times when I only had one. Having so many presents did not make us fulfill. And we were all like, because I was a teenage mom, I wasn't arrogant. I was learning a lot from him. I loved him so much.
Yeah.
And I didn't want him to go to daycare because I was afraid that he's going to be abused. So I wanted to be here. I wanted to be there for him, and did really the best I could. I might not have been perfect, I know, but I've really my why was so big, and and he was named after Jesus. His name was Cristo. And I got in trouble for that because everybody wanted me to name him.
That's not the traditional.
That's not the tradition.
Bulgarian way of naming kids, right?
Nope. No, you name them after your in-laws or your parents.
Yeah.
But I'm like, nope. I'm gonna name him after Jesus. So I was very, very rebellious, and but and
So what happened? So you have Christo. Izzy comes over, and then you have Alex at some point.
Yeah, in 1999.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what happened after that? Like where did things, where did life lead you to the point where you were just kind of like, all right, I need to make a change in my life? You were convicted of your sin.
It took a long time.
You trusted Christ.
Yeah. It took a very long time.
What happened in between there?
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of things that happened. I was working, 2-3 jobs. I was interpreting from everybody. I was volunteering. I was helping everybody that came in as a refugee or for any somehow, from Bulgaria. I was always there to help. So I was doing a lot of God's work.
Mm-hmm.
and it was making me feel fulfilled. I think I was carrying a lot of sin because I also had an abortion. I was so afraid to have another kid. I didn't want it to between Crystal and Alex. Not one but two. And
why is that?
Because I was swept by the drift. All of a sudden, life wasn't important. The thing that I was holding on to when I was 14, all of a sudden was gone. And honestly, I don't know if I was doing God's work. I don't know if I think in my heart I was thinking I'm doing God's work. But I also think that it might have been a way that was the only way that I could prove myself. It was something that I really liked doing, proving people wrong and finding a way to help people. It was really, this is something that God had put into my heart. But it was also a way of showing the world that, I am worthy. That not money isn't everything.
Yeah.
That I can do this. I stubborn in all way possible. But so it was a lot of like I was teaching women how to drive. Women were very much abused in Bulgaria. It wasn't during my parents, like nothing in my family, but it was really because of because they were believers. And everything outside of that whole chaos, this is what my life was like. It's like trying to get away from chaos. It's like where the truth was, there was a order, and everything else was a chaos, and just really wanting to to somehow step away from all that. But women were not treated as equal. If a man is found caught cheating, they're no big deal. But if a woman was cheating, she's being shamed, and and no matter how much I was doing, I was still being shamed because I was a teenage mom. Somehow that was such a terrible thing, because nobody knew about my abortion, so that was all good. Right. On the surface, things were kind of starting to open up a little bit. Like on the surface, things were supposed to be better, but it wasn't here.
Not inside.
No, absolutely not. And I think we Easy had a friend who was rich. She had a lot of businesses in Maine, and also kind of like a bad influence for him, because he was the one that started taking him to Las Vegas to gamble and all this and that, which was a completely that kind of distraction was the reason why we divorced. I mean, we were together for 20 years. I was a kid, and I said, we are going to make this. And at the very end, I gave up because for me, it was a decision. I already knew then that love is making a decision.
Yeah.
How did I know that then? And then all of a sudden, I don't know any of that.
Did that factor into your decision to get the abortions?
Yeah.
Because there was some infidelity and...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was the infidelity and me being concerned that what would I do? It was, but I wasn't worried about that when I was 14, and all of a sudden but I think it was all the sin, the infidelity, the just the whole drift about what kind of clothes do you wear. We were not living, we did not know how to, we were making money, but we were nowhere, saving. We just wanted to look good.
Yeah. For appearances' sake.
Yeah, and because we wanted to get a little bit of we wanted to feel better in society. Although we appeared like we didn't really care about them, but we were still trying, honestly. I think, we were definitely still trying. And I remember Crystal was 16 years old, and we invited John, what's his name, Easy's friend, to come to lunch with us on a Sunday. And I'm just like, wanted everything to be perfect, right? The things that we've learned from it's like, how can this be even important? And remember Cristo asking, he was like, well, you know, all this is fake. This is not who we are. We don't eat lunch like that. You know, remember him saying, you know, he was not happy because we were putting up a show.
Yeah.
And when he said that, it was really, it really hurt me. That all of a sudden, I realized, you know, all of a sudden at this moment, I'm like, you know, what is happening? What is really going on? Like, where are we going? It felt like, you know, all of this thing, you know, all of it for nothing almost, you know. And so, yeah, I mean, I started being convicted about my sin, seeing a lot more, being an interpreter and working for Catholic Charities, seeing a lot more of the world's worse. Worse. I mean, I thought that I saw so much.
Yeah.
But I haven't even seen, like, I haven't even, when I started interpreting, going to the jail, going to courts, going to psychiatric hospitals, interpreting for emergencies, right, or anything. It was really, really scary.
Yeah. So you're in Maine, and all this stuff is going on. You have the abortions, you get divorced. Somehow you and Alex end up in Georgia.
Yes, yeah.
And what happens?
Yeah, I mean, being a single mom here, it's not an easy thing. Just like in Bulgaria, I found out, especially when you don't have family, and or a church. I didn't even know that even existed, right? I mean, I was by myself. I was alone. There was this big, huge void in my heart. Divorce is terrible. There's nothing worse than that. No matter what, you know, it's really, really...
The broken trust and
all
of those things, yeah.
Broken trust and broken families, like... And I had this feeling I lost, you know, I felt defeated. 100% defeated. And yeah, I was depressed and just really, you know, my only why was, you know, Cristo and Alex, who was incredible, you know. You know, those are the gifts, you know, that God had given me. I didn't want Alex too. I remember, you know, I was really struggling. But it wasn't until, like, I think I was almost, you know, 4 months pregnant when I found out that I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which you already know. I know for me that God was really, God, I can see God in my life. You know, the you know, how you look back and, you know, the things that made me who I am was really, you know, being a teenage mom, learning that I was adopted. My birth mom was also a teenage mom who was hidden in a monastery for 9 months. So I heard the truth, but somehow I interpret things wrong. I knew the truth, but then all of a sudden I chose to live a different life. And it was really dragging my... And I honestly didn't think that I was at hope. I couldn't find... I was always joyful, always in a good mood, always willing to jump in and do stuff and to help. And all of a sudden I find myself really dragging it. Yeah. Like really, really dragging it. I had zero desires, you know. It was just really a tough time. And also struggling with identity. I think it was a lot of the abandonment, the void, and the sin. And I didn't want to accept sin. I mean, nobody even blink. When I said I wanted to get an abortion, it was just as easy. Nobody was asking questions. It was just the norm.
Wow.
I mean, so I didn't even feel bad. And, you know, God convinced me, you know, convicted me of my sin, you know, it took some time. It took a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Are you all right?
No, I got a cold chill real quick. I don't know why.
Yeah, it took a long time.
Uh-huh.
But in my heart, I was searching, and I was asking God for a change. I'm like, this cannot be, this cannot be. And not knowing who God is was the scariest thing. Wanting to get away, wanting to give this the sin that I was dragging behind me. It was dragging me. I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know. I know God died for our sins, and we had salvation, but I was skipping a step. I wanted all this, but I was skipping a step, and nobody have even guided me through that. Even when I was baptized, nobody said that nobody even shared the gospel with me.
Wow.
So I didn't know the real truth. And like, how is it so difficult to hear the truth in the gospel? Why is no one for all those years never approached me to tell me or ask me a question? Was I a Christian? What did I believe? Did I not believe? Like, did anybody cared? I didn't think anybody cared to ask me.
Wow.
So when I met you, and I know how passionate you were about evangelism, I said, well, this is my opportunity to start reading the Bible and asking questions. I'm like, wow, I guess this is it. It's like God heard my prayers, but it wasn't until I was 100% convicted of my sin and saying, God, I know that I sin against you so much. I listened, it was just, accidentally, I was on a lunch break and hearing on a radio a sermon, and it was about forgiveness and the love of God. And that's when I'm like, I've been going to Eastern Orthodox Church. I've never heard anything. Nobody have told me. Nobody asked me anything. But I am sitting in a lunch break, and I don't even listen to this station. I was just kind of scrolling. I was just depressed, so I'm just going up and down, and I don't even know what I was doing. I know that I was really sad because I moved here, and it was right through the 2008 the recession, and I lost my job. I couldn't find a job. I didn't have any friends. It was really a difficult time, and I through someone that I met, I got this job, which was a sales job. But after the first month, I was if I didn't make my quota, I was given a notice. So that was the time when they gave me the warning.
Yeah.
I had 1 month to learn. The second month, I did not reach my quota. I was supposed to make 75 calls, up to 100. I was selling fuel cards and on the phone talking to, truck drivers. They really couldn't even understand what I was saying. I didn't even know what an 18-wheeler was. But I'm like, I know that I can do everything because this, I know that I can learn. And that was always my, I would hold on to that hope that I know that I can do it. I can learn. If someone show me, I know I'm smart. And, but it was that downtime when I'm like, I don't know what to do. I really was crushed. There was I didn't think that anything else can happen. Anything worse than that, I wasn't even making $26,000 a year. I think, it was like, well, when I got this job was like 45 because I lost my job. And so looking for a job here was like nothing. You work as a waitress, $30,000. It was like going back to where we started. And with that notice, that I'm just like, okay, well, I need to learn how to sell, because I can't afford to be without a job.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, really, crying and praying. And then that's the day when I heard this sermon about, forgiveness, and that I can repent for my sin.
Mm.
And I can give it out to God, because He had already paid for my sin. And I was just, this was a good news for me. And it was a really good news for me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, then this is it. Then I need to repent for my sin, and I get to give it to God, because He cares more about it, and He already paid for it. And then I get to accept salvation. And it was not that I remember that's what I understood. And because I have already met you, and so we started having those conversations, about God, and you kept asking me if I've read the Bible. I remember that now I was being looked down upon because I said that I've never read the Bible. I mean, it's like, life is not easy, right? So I have a heart for people, for the lost, and those that are in a dark days, because I've been there for many, many years, thinking that I was a Christian, thinking that I was a good person, thinking, believing that I have so much struggle and I've done God's work, really humbling, right? But then when I started reading the Bible with you, and those were really the things that learning to be humble. I didn't sin. When I heard sin, I'm like, well, I didn't kill anyone. Right? But then
I'm doing isn't as bad as that guy.
Right.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I hated lying. That was the one thing that was really, I wanted to live a real life, a true life, and that I don't have to lie. And learning that is a sin. I knew that all my life. I'm like, how come all of a sudden I forgot about that? It's like, this is the drift. When you step away from God, when you're in the drift and drifting far away, you go so far away from the truth. And you're not asking yourself the right questions. I then started asking questions about, like, what do I really believe? How do I really live? Like, is that what I need to be? Is that what God is saying? And I knew that going to church was not to hear. It was to learn how people are living. That's what I was going there for. I wanted to learn how those people are living. How are they really following? And but yeah, so I have so much compassion for the lost, because my dark days were so many.
No.
And they were really dark and scary and lonely. And I think the major thing for me was really being lied to and living a lie, and wanting to know the truth, and learning about who God is really finding that His message is the same. It's consistent. It does not matter what the story is. His word doesn't change. His position didn't change. It didn't matter, because this is what I was experiencing. And I'm like, well, I can rely on God, because His word is the same. And it was also consistent. It did not matter what the situation was. I could take that and apply it. And it was also valid. It's like when I started asking questions, like, what really is important? Like, why am I doing this? What's important to me? Like, how did I got lost, completely lost. in all this, and seeing the validity of God's word, and then I think it was in Hebrew, it specifically talks about that when you it talks about the drift. You watch out for the drift, because you're stepping away from the truth. And I'm like, yeah, this is it. I've been in a drift for all those many years. And I know it's hard to go into a church community and wanting to ask questions when you're still afraid to even ask questions, because you're afraid that you're going to be also rejected, looked down upon. And that is probably my fault. I'm taking that as another sin, because I'm keep on hiding and lying. So reading the Word of God was because I did believe that we are the light and the salt of the earth, because taking away our sin means that we have a chance. He's giving us another chance to live. He had paid for my sin, and I'm given another chance to live, and I get to face tomorrow, and all of this is gone, and I don't have to worry about it, and it doesn't represent me. And I said, well, you know what? I don't want anything else. My purpose is to live and to walk with God and to serve Him.
Amen.
And to serve the purpose that He has.
Yeah.
Because He have done miracles in my life. I see them. Every time that I was being corrected or being given, those challenges, I didn't understand what was happening. But I cannot rely on myself. You taught me how to pray for everything and to stop worrying about everything. And I was doing the opposite. It's like the one thing that I had against, because I did not quite knew who He was. I didn't know the truth. I didn't understand that I had to humble myself. But I think the darkness, the being lost and blind and not being awakened. I mean, this is our challenge in humanity, right? That's why I'm so passionate about. And what you're asking me, I'm passionate about evangelism, just like you. I'm passionate about discipleship, just like you. I'm passionate about creating those close connections where we could talk about everything, that we could talk about difficult topics and not worrying about being liked
or talked about.
Yes, not worrying about if I'm going to be liked, because I'm not doing this for any other reasons outside of to glorify God, because everything that He had done for me was to take me out from a dark place and to bring my light and to put it out to shine brightly, because I believe that I had so much in me that I can give to the world. And being alive, if I am alive and living, I am contributing for the better of our society, because I do have a loving heart. And I'm not saying that I've done terrible things. I didn't quite understood how terrible I was, but God had convinced me of my sin. And anger, I didn't know anger was a sin. I didn't know fear was a sin. Well, I mean, it's knowing
is half the battle.
Yeah, knowing that is
just knowing it. Okay,
I can work with that. I'm like, give me more, because those are the stuff that were really like,
let me know what I need to get out of my life.
Yeah.
Or to surrender to God.
Because at least it's a straightforward recipe. I've always liked math. I've always liked technology, because and questions, because it's a process. I've always been oriented on that, and it seems like anywhere I look, Jesus had the best questions in the world, and I'm like, why am I not asking myself those questions? I wasn't being taught. No, the world is not going to teach me that. So finding all of that, critical thinking, relevance, and the reliability of God's word. I mean, yeah, it is important to not to ask, not bring your understanding, but to ask God to help you. I would read the Bible for a couple of years and not even always understanding, and going back and rereading it again. And sometimes I will read it and read it and read it and read it, and I'm like, I don't get it. Right? But then keep bringing it back to Him, and I'm like, I created a relationship with Him. I learned that I'm made in His image, and if he can forgive me, then I don't really have much to worry about. But it took time. It took time. But my like I said, I've been on this spiritual journey for some time, and God is doing amazing things in my life. He's been using everything that came my way, and it was meant to be evil. He turned it around, and it was good. I can give you testimony after testimony after testimony.
Yeah.
The reason why we're together is I needed to hear the good news. I needed to hear the gospel. You needed to hear having a relationship it's with God is so important. I needed to hear theology. I needed to hear doctrines. And somehow, we're like, how I would have never even thought that, or dream, like, I don't have a vision without God. He has opened my eyes. I have a vision. Now I can see. I'm awakened because I see what's possible. He has given us all of that. And so my I have a lot of practices. It's not just one thing. Gratitude. I think this is one thing that I've always had respect, like, being afraid of God. Like, I've always, no matter how terrible the things that I've done, at first I didn't understand, but then when I understood, I started begging God for forgiveness, and to wanting to separate me from that.
Yeah.
And when I read the Bible, when I'm reading the Bible, I'm like, this is what the world is. It's it's a constant desire to break free from our, because we could be terrible, and have a terrible hearts, and accepting to be sinful was like, now that I'm thinking, I'm like, how did I have such a huge resistance towards that, knowing how sinful I was living? How did I have such a huge resistance? It's really difficult to, and that's why I heard God's words many times, very loud and clear. Very loud and clear. And trusting that in all this noise, that He was not leaving me. He wasn't gonna let me down. I had to do was to humble myself and to seek Him, more than anything, and to put Him first. And what does that really look like? To have gratitude, to embrace my dark side. I know I have a dark side, and I'm already convicted. I know that it's there, but I am bringing all of those thoughts into the obedience of Christ, and putting it on a cross and nailing it down and starting a new life.
That's right.
And I mean, I was going everywhere looking for wisdom. I love books and I love reading, and I didn't have friends, but I was following some pretty big names, and I was resourceful. All my life I knew that no matter what, I knew how to find my way out. And I believed that, and that was really the hope that God gave me, and I found Him. I finally found Him. And I want that so much for other people. I want that so much, because my life, I don't know, I don't even recognize myself. I don't know, it's so, and it's not like I don't recognize myself in terms of from their perspective of being so resistant, but I 100%, you know,
Yeah.
the self-sabotaging myself, wanting to not be kind, you know, because, you know, I was being a victim. I mean, it's all of that. It's not even important. You know, once I understood what, you know, this is it. This is, just listen to me, read my word and follow me. And I'm just like, wow, this is so simple. No wonder. I remember reading, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And I'm just like, okay, all right, I want a lot of that. What is that? You know, and that's why when you started telling, when I heard you praying that day at dinner table, and God took away your allergy so we could have dinner, I'm just like, I couldn't sleep all night. I couldn't sleep all night thinking, I'm like, what? Hold on a minute. He's praying for God to take away his allergy. That means like, what? I can pray for all of that? I was just like a little kid. My eyes started opening. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm praying about everything. Everything and anything and everything. And, you know, I know that I have gotten myself into things because of the things that I've been praying. But at least I know that I can, now I know that, be careful what you pray for, because
That's right.
it'll be given to you. Because I know that I was praying to get away from all of that. And I wanted to be able to bring all my dirty, you know, dishes, all the dirty rugs.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring him out and surrender. And he washed them out. I mean, I'm so happy that I can talk about that, and I don't really, you know, and it's like, going for, had job interviews and you know, people will ask me, you know, oh, well, so you're so young and you sound so old, you know, like you look so young, and how old were you? And I will, you know, I wouldn't say. I hated that. So that it was another decision that I had to make. It was just, who are you going to be? When I learned that this is what Jesus is inviting me, who are you going to be? So my daily practice is gratitude. My daily practice is reading the Bible. My daily practice is praying. My daily practice is asking for forgiveness, asking for direction, and just surrendering. And I'm telling you, it's nonstop.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day. And if you let up for that one day.
That's right.
Yeah. It seems like the world is crashing in on you.
Yeah, it is. It is, because, you know, stepping away from the truth, it's so easy to be deceived. I mean, the fall of humanity, you know, when I'm reading Genesis now, I mean, it's like, I have a very different, you know, I see now, I see and understand. It's like the fight between the beauty and the ugliness, the fight between, you know, strength and fear and cowardness, the fight between, you know, we are never going to be good enough, we can never be perfect. Like, who are we comparing ourselves to? You know, the things that I thought that I understood when my father was teaching me about love your neighbor as yourself, you know, those are things that I grew up with. Well, I had to learn how to love myself first. I didn't love myself because I did not know that God loved me first. I started loving myself when I learned that God loved me so much. And if he had loved me so much to give his son, his only son, and he's telling me I need to love myself first. I had to let go and forgive. God forgave, Jesus forgave, but I didn't forgive. You know, it's a process. Awakening and really following God is the only way to transformation. It's the only way to want to live a life of meaning and purpose. Because I couldn't find all of those things that I was looking for. I couldn't find it anywhere. You know, I was a mom. I had a good job. I was making money. It was, all of those things, we were not fulfilled. There was nothing in this life that it was exciting. So my and it's really important to every single day to ask yourself the questions about, to review your life for yourself.
Yeah. Well, Paul says, I think in 1 Corinthians, that we're supposed to examine ourselves.
Right.
To take account of our lives, whether we're in the faith. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't get to study any of that in school because the communists, they had a different program for us.
Yeah.
We didn't study, critical thinking. We were just, we were.
They don't want you to be critical.
No,
thinkers.
We were not.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we grew up with this constant. We knew that there's a lie everywhere, and we questioned everything. So I questioned authority. I always question. I always question authority. That's why I'm rebellious. I've questioned our authority because it didn't mean anything. But, and anywhere we look, like, I want to do apologetics. I want to talk about this because it's what brings life. Being connected to the source is what brings life. We all have, the baggage and our sin and the things that we are not so proud of. And even if the things that we are proud of, they are not gonna, those things are not gonna make us happy.
Yeah.
None of that will make us happy. Being right with God will make us happy. Knowing that we have a purpose will make us happy. And this is my testimony for Testimony Tuesday, and I hope that this is helpful for anyone.
Is there any last words that you would like to say to the audience here?
Last words. I mean, I spoke so much. If there's one thing that I wish I've done different, only one thing that I've done different in my life would have been to get to know God sooner. And that is really, if I have to give advice to my 20-year-old, it will be that: trust God. Trust God above all else.
That's right. I second that. Yeah. Thank you so much, baby, for coming on.
You're welcome.
And
thank you for having me.
Such an amazing testimony, man. I know a lot of people are going to be affected by it, and hopefully they will trust in Christ for salvation. Yeah. But thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
All
thank you. Have a blessed day.
Love you.
Love you too.
Love you guys too.